It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie. And today is Bodyful Day 67. Smell. That aromatherapy thing. So remember that this week has been all about how to switch your coping mechanisms. And before we dig into this stuff, I want to just briefly, I think I do, maybe just briefly talk about the fact that a lot of these things are what we call hacks in modern day approaches. How to hack this, how to hack that. We are in essence learning how to hack our coping system. The problem is that it's not really a hack. It's something that you should already know how to do. But the problem is in our modern society, we are not allowed to be in our body. Body is wrong. Mind is right. And so because after we got out of being kids and maybe after our rebellious 20s, we needed to settle down and get things done, we started to ignore the sensory system because there were things that needed to be checked off and move on and da-da-da-da-da-da. And so now the world is filled with all sorts of hacks because things that you knew as a child, things that you should still actually know as a human being, have to be reintroduced to you because they weren't adult. So you'll find that this is kind of a pet peeve of mine with modern society. But the fact that I have to have a video called Bodyful because people don't like to jump into the body. There are all sorts of things, that disgusting, whatever things that can be associated with the body. Our goal is always to control the body, but what we don't understand is that the body is our pathway back to our sanity. We develop coping mechanisms because we can't connect with our body. And so these are hacks for negative coping mechanisms that will hopefully get you back into your body. And by learning about these things each day, if you're paying attention, are ways to inform you about things that you already knew intuitively as a child that can get you out of that activation state, out of that disconnected state, and back into yourself. So today we're going to talk about the sense of smell and how we can hack, but again, I don't think of it as a hack that to stop coping mechanisms that are negative. Let's go ahead and take our deep breaths in and release. Breathe all the way in from the bottom of the lungs all the way up to the top. Deep breath in. And release. Notice that I do wiggle to get all the way up to the top. Sometimes you just got to kind of bend and swivel until you can get the air through the entire system. Now, think about any stressor that you've had today and see if you can figure out in your mind where it might be. Like, even if it was an emotional thing, figure out where it might be sitting in your body. And when you breathe in, breathe into that spot. Take a deep breath in and release. All right. So today we're talking about the sense of smell and how to use it as a coping mechanism. And as you might suspect, that aromatherapy thing comes up. And there are lots of companies out there touting their candle and their wax and their essential oils and their stuff. I can tell you I'm not really positive on candles and wax-based things because those are petrochemicals and not necessarily the best for the lungs. So if you're going to do, and for people who are sensitive to petrochemicals, they can really trash their immune system, just like walking into it. In fact, just as an aside, I lost 4 patients that were highly sensitive because my office mate turned on a Glade plug-in that had pear, and it got into all the walls, and it smells like pear as soon as you walk into my office. It smells like artificial pear. And because I couldn't get into her office to turn it off, that scent is now infested all the carpet and the walls of the shared office space, and I have people that can't come in. So I am not keen on anything that has a petrochemical base, which is why I have my handy dandy box of essential oils here. And just because we don't always need essential oils to hack our nervous system, I have my youngest's pillow, which looks like it needs to be washed. But the interesting thing is, moms love to smell kids up until a certain age. I don't like to smell the hair of my 11-year-old, but I do like to smell the hair of my 7-year-old. So there is just something wonderful about sticking your nose into a kid's hair and taking a big whiff. So that's what today is about. Today is about how do we take what we know about the sensory system, about the sense of smell. Remember, it's the closest to the brain. There's just a little bit of wiring that goes right up there, that because it is the most immediate and the most active, and like it doesn't have to travel up arms and then into the brain. It's just right there. We can use that to short circuit coping mechanisms. If that means grabbing your child's head and huffing their hair, so be it. If it means getting up a stash of essential oils, it might. But there is something about, say, now again, not one of my favorites, but it just happens to be the one I grabbed, something about juniper berry that just brings you into a pine forest. And pine is bright and open and really good for, it's a bitter actually, really good for pulling you back into your body. If you knew a scent that you liked that reminded you of, 7-year-old hair, why not have it on hand so that even if, obviously in today's workplace you don't want to slather on a couple of drops of geranium, and frankly I would never recommend that anybody slather on a couple of drops of anything unless they really know what's going to happen to their body. But just to merely open up a container of, say, geranium oil because it reminds you of grandma, and just take a small sniff and say, wow, that reminds me of grandma. That starts the imagery here, which then starts to calm down the nervous system. If they had an essential oil for the seaside, totally be on it, but they can't oil that. They can't condense that smell. But if you know scents that remind you of things, that calm you down, you can grab them and have them handy to short circuit the system when you are so up in your head and you need to come back down. Now, over the course of the past 8 weeks, we've talked about cool things. We've talked about like washing your hair with rosemary and cypress. We've talked about the smell of rain. We've talked about the memory and smell of crayons, petrochemicals. But, and in fact, just as an aside, my youngest had the crayon box open while I was trying to prepare dinner, and I had to have him shut it. It was good memories, but they need to be in a well-ventilated room. And we talked about smelling and enjoying your cup of coffee. And you know what? Thinking about combining yesterday with today, taste with, was it yesterday that we did taste? It may have been 2 days ago. Talking about combining, you could put a little bit of cinnamon in your coffee, or today I put some nutmeg in my tea, and that little bit of extra smell could just be just that little bit of thing that brings you back into your body. It's think of it as an indulgence for your brain. So having your essential oils, having your pillowcase that smells like your 7-year-old, those are fantastic things. But have them handy, you know. Have some flowers out. Right now, I don't know whose flowers it is, but one of my neighbors has something that is just absolutely fabulously in bloom. And it is just, it's slightly humid here, so there's just like this wafting of odor molecules on these extra moisture molecules that is making it absolutely wonderful to sit outside. Now, it's because I don't have allergies. So if you have allergies, of course, be careful what oils you pick up. You know, the more grassy ones are going to trigger your allergy responses. But look for things that make you feel good. Did you know that they have a coffee essential oil? They have actually squeezed the oil out of coffee beans. And so if you don't like coffee, but your grandmother always brewed it every morning when you were there at her house, some coffee essential oil is not necessarily a bad thing, just to bring you to that spot, just to bring you out of that global high activation state and back into, maybe not the real world, but back into a body calm spot. All right, so today is about the fact that yes, aromatherapy does work. There are some features of it, mostly memory, that are good. That's that top-down contextual thing. There are bottom-up components of smell. So there are elements about the sense of smell that actually can trigger responses in your body, and that's related to our conversation on sweat. So that pheromones, those molecules, actually cause your body to change itself. And likewise, there are some of those in essential oils. You just need to be careful with the amounts and how often you use them. But they too can trigger hormonal type responses that trigger how you respond. But for right now, think about aromatherapy and coping mechanisms as a way to reset your brain from a high activation state and back into a more calmer, peaceful place for you to be. All right, let's finish off with our breathing. Take a breath in. Oh, something floral. It could be lilacs. And blow it out. All right. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.